Well, we took him on the road when he was 5 weeks old, and we homeschooled him until he was 13. He lives in Arlington, Virginia, right outside of DC.
Okay, so
Yeah,
he's
he's
Arlington.
working. He works on computers and things like that. He's his own man. He's got his own life, and he went to Virginia Tech and GW, and he interned in Congress for a year. So he's a very kind of politically, and he's very very involved in the government. We don't see each other as much as we should. But over Christmas we were together for about 3 weeks, and it's really nice. Um, we go, we actually go up and we take the truck up into the back country, up into the mountains. He loves to camp and things like that. We do stuff like that, and we just we watch movies and just do normal stuff. Probably not. No. We're actually playing outside of DC in Bethesda, Maryland, and he'll probably come to that. Well, we took him on the road when he was 5 weeks old, and we homeschooled him until he was 13. So we spent all of our time together, and I think that was the most important thing that we did, because we created an unshakable bond, I think. Regardless of whether we're together now and we don't see each other very often, we still have this very solid bond, because I know who he is as a real, in his soul. And I think that was the most important thing. And the other thing I would say is that we let him become what he was meant to be. We gave him music lessons, and we had instruments around the house. He didn't take to it. And I knew from a very early age he wasn't going to be a musician. And so he was always science oriented and very analytical. And so we fostered that and we encouraged that. I think, without, I can be specific, but in general, it's the people and the experiences of traveling around the world, especially in the early days. I have a fondness for the 70s, because everyone thinks that because we were so popular in the 80s, that would be like, that was my greatest memory. But I was so busy and there were so many demands on our time that I didn't really have a chance to enjoy it as much, even though we were super successful. But in the 70s, everything was new. Every city we went to was new. We met new people. We played venues we never saw before. And we traveled around in a car, in a van. It was really, I think the story of becoming is much more interesting than the kind of talking about your victory lap, so to speak. How it happened, I think, is more important. Well, one of the things that I like about doing this show with Guthrie is that I began to play the guitar at 6 years old. And so when I met Daryl at 18 or 19, I had already been playing for 20 years, or 12 years rather. So I had an entire musical life as a child that had nothing to do with Hall & Oates or Daryl Hall. And so all that has, always been overshadowed by the great commercial success of Hall & Oates. So this gives me an opportunity to show people what I was like. And it also gives me a chance to rediscover, and my move to Nashville was part of that as well, to rediscover the real traditional folk blues roots of where I came from. And so I do a lot of that. And I also go back in time to talk about, I know this is very involved, but I did an album in 2018 called Arkansas. And in the course of doing that album, I began to do a lot of research into the early days of American pop music, because being a pop musician, obviously, I actually didn't know where pop started, because it didn't start with rock and roll. A lot of people might think it did, but it didn't. And so I said, well, what's the definition of a pop song? And I said, well, what's the criteria that makes a pop song a pop song? My definition is if you can hear it on the radio or a device, and if it can be, if you have it on a recording. So I went back to the earliest days of radio and the earliest days of the phonograph machine, the actual record player. And I said to myself, this is an earth-shattering, world-changing event. For the first time in history, people could take music and bring it into their homes. So I said, wait a minute, this is important. So I started to look at the songs that were hits in the early 1920s. And I said, this is the beginning of American popular music. And so I identified those songs and I recorded them in my way, you know, kind of reimagined. And it opened up a whole world to me. And I said, wait a minute, I don't think a lot of people understand this. So in a way, our show is a chronology of the American pop song from the very beginning. And then I weave in my own new songs, and then I go to the Hall & Oates hits. So it's this kind of arc of time that takes you, it's kind of a story. I don't know, I've used nice things from fans. Strangest thing I've ever seen, probably weird food that was like left in packages for like weeks that finally got to me, and I was like, wow, you know, sometimes a little bit nervous about opening certain things. How about we have a basement full of oats. We have so much oats that it's unbelievable. There must be 7 or 8 different companies that are sending us giant boxes of stuff. We have so much stuff. It's incredible. And we're talking to them about actually doing collabs and stuff. So this thing took on a life of its own, and so we'll see. But something is happening. And I think my destiny is to be the Oatman, no matter what. It's like no brainer, but at the same time, it just never occurred to me. And then all of a sudden, we did it, and people went crazy. So.